Can we just talk? Can we just talk about where we're going before we get lost? Maybe our thoughts can't get what we want without knowing. Never felt like it.
Hi, my name is Coleman-Owusu and welcome back to my channel. So you're now watching the second video in what is a series of videos in me helping you prepare your college application. If you haven't already watched the first video, it is in the link in the description below. It's where I kind of give you general advice on how to apply to college, how to start thinking about that process. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out now. It's in the link below. So in this video, I will be giving you 8 things that I wish that I knew when I was applying to college. I sat down, looked back, and was like, wow, these are things that I should have known before I started the application process, so that way I could have had the best chance in putting my best foot forward. So definitely take these with a grain of salt. Some won't apply to you, some may be specific to my situation, but these are definitely some things to be thinking about. Learn from my mistakes. Here are my 8 tips. Again, if you haven't already, go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. There's more in the series to come that will help you prepare for college, get those applications ready so you can be prepared. So my first tip is to make sure that you are visiting schools before you apply. When I was applying, I visited like one school of all the schools I applied to. I didn't even apply to a lot of schools, but I only visited one. And honestly, that was the school I ended up going to. But looking back, I wish I took the time to apply, not to apply more, but to visit more schools. I feel like being able to go onto the campus, to get a feel of the campus, to walk around and really envision yourself there will be a big determining factor on if you decide to go later, if you get accepted. I feel like you should take the time if you can, as long as it's not something crazy. But take the time if you can, if it's right down the road, if it's a few hours away, grab some friends, see if they'll go with you, and take the time to visit the colleges that you're interested in. I also feel like, for me, I lean a lot towards my intuition. So if I go to the school and something feels a little bit off and I'm like, I don't really see myself going here, that ends up playing a big factor later, because if I don't see myself going to the school, then something must be off and so it might not be the best fit for me. So definitely I wish that I visited more schools so that way I could get a feel of them, because my intuition ended up being a big factor in where I decided to go. And with that being said, a lot of schools offer tours year-round that you can take advantage of by yourself, with friends. You'll be put in a big group of people that are also applying to college, trying to learn more about the school, and y'all will be walking around things like freshman dorms, the campus, see different classrooms you might be sitting in, or the different activities that they have, the gym, just whatever that school has to offer, that's all built into the tour. And you'll have a tour guide that knows a lot about the school that can give you more information. And I highly suggest that you take advantage of those opportunities. The second thing that I wish I knew, or I came to realize to know, is that out of state isn't always the best thing. So I know in high school, like, you're excited, you're ready to go, be off on your own. Some people are really excited and ready to go. And I was one of those people. I was ready to get my life started. I'm graduating. I'm ready to, hit the ground running. But my advice is just like not to run too far, because a lot of the times you have like schools, when you're looking at schools, it's like a big, ocean. There's so many opportunities and so many places you can go. But what I learned through my process is that sometimes staying in state is the better option down the line, especially when you're taking into account things like student loans, cost of tuition, and things like that. Out of state tends to be higher, and out of state also tends to not give scholarships. Well, not give scholarships, but have less scholarships available to students that are in the state. There's more funding opportunities if you stay within your state that you should consider. I'm not saying that you have to stay in state, but it's just something that I wish that, not that I wish I took advantage of because I stayed in state, but like that's something that I came to learn through the application process, is that maybe staying in state for me would have been better, applying and looking more at more schools in state than taking my money and putting it in a lot of out-of-state schools. When it came down to it, I wasn't really trying to leave because I found out that a lot of my funding opportunities were right here. That also brings me into my next point, which is learn the real cost of attendance. So when you're looking at these schools, they have these lists of tuition, books, health fee, all these different fees that you'd be paying, and then give you like a big number at the bottom. That's not the cost of tuition. School is going to end up being a little bit more than that number that they hand to you, just because you have to count into things like, you have to account for things like the cost to travel to that school. If you're going somewhere out of state, then you have to think about, okay, how am I going to get my things there? How am I going to get my things back in the summer? When I come back home for Thanksgivings, those are flights. Christmases, that's a flight. Spring break, that's a flight. Every time you want to come home, those are costs that you have to take into account. So when you're looking at the real cost of attendance, also look at things like the living costs. If you go to school in a bigger city, things are going to be more expensive there. Food is going to be more expensive. Activities are going to be more expensive. So you need to take into account that, especially if you're going to a big city from like a smaller town where things aren't as expensive. I know that for me, I went to school closer to a big city. Even though I came from a pretty decent sized city, I went to a bigger city. And so while in my college area, the things you could find like well-priced items, well-priced activities and things like that to do. But if you literally stepped out into the city, then you would be paying a lot more than what you would be paying anywhere else that's like not that city. So definitely take into account where you're going and factor in those extra costs, the moving, the traveling, the activities, and all those other things that will come into play down the line. So the next tip I have for you is to ask for fee waivers. So schools 9 times out of 10 want you to apply to their school. It looks good, it makes them look relevant. Take advantage of those opportunities. A lot of times they have fee waivers for minority students, for students with low income, and then honestly, if you just ask, 9 times out of 10, they'll have a fee waiver that they can give to you, and you can end up applying to that school at no extra cost to you. Take advantage of that, call the admissions and see if they have anything available. The worst that they can say is no. And also, I know in my state, they have it's like college application days, in which if you apply to that college or have your application done by that day, you can submit your application and apply for free. So a lot of schools will be doing that on the same day. So it's to your advantage to look up these days, see if they are available, see if you can get those fee waivers, so that way you can prepare your application ahead of time and have it ready to submit on those days so you don't have to pay. And that's just more money in your pocket, more money that you can save for other things when it comes down to getting your supplies or things like that. So the next thing that I realized is that test scores don't matter as much as you think they do. I feel like for me, I placed a lot of weight on the ACT, SAT, and making sure like my scores were as high as they could possibly be. They weren't even that high. I'm not a great test taker, so they went from small average to just average. And it just, looking back, I wish I didn't spend that much time on those things, just because looking at what's going on now with things like, I'm recording this in the time of COVID, so a lot of the times, or a lot of schools I see are even dropping the ACT, SAT requirement for students because they can't even take it. And I also saw before that schools were just removing the requirement in general, because there's a lot of things behind the SAT and ACT that people don't realize, as far as like, it's not the best test to see how well you can do in college. I mean, that's definitely a conversation for another day, but looking back, if you do a really good job, that's great, that's fantastic. But if the SAT and ACT is something that you struggle with, if standardized testing in general is something that you struggle with, make sure you just take a deep breath, take the test, do your best, and focus on the things that you're good at. I wouldn't recommend throwing hundreds of dollars away to retake the test when it's not gonna raise that much. But it's definitely a much more complicated topic that I'll be talking about later in the series. So look out for that video where I'll go more in depth on the ACT and SAT and how to know how many times you should take it, how to approach it and things like that for people that may be really good at the test and then for people that aren't so good at standardized testing. So just look out for that. But one thing to think about is don't throw too much weight on it, because 9 times out of 10 colleges are looking at the application a little bit more holistically than you think. Okay, so the next thing that I wish I knew, looking back at the beginning of the application process, it's not something that I placed a lot of weight on at the beginning, but towards the middle is when I started looking at learning my loans, scholarships, grants, and things like that, like learning how I'm funding my education. And that's something that I highly suggest that you look at as early as possible, especially when you're going into the application process, and then even more so when you decide which school you're going to and are about to take out loans or about to receive scholarships or accept your funding package in general. Make sure you look at subsidized versus unsubsidized loans versus private loans versus scholarships and grants. Look at if it's necessary to write a letter to the beneficiary every year. Look at what you're receiving. Look at the funding package and every aspect of the funding package, because I promise you it's something that you're gonna need to know later when it's time to pay off any loans that you take out, or just so you know that you're good financially each year. You don't wanna go into it and then something comes up and you don't know what's going on. Like, you don't want to just accept the funding package and then you realize, oh, I needed to write a letter to this person, or oh, I needed to do this or something else, or defer my, whatever that you needed to do. You don't want to find that out at the last minute. So make sure that you are kind of understanding what you need to do when the time comes. So you don't need to have like this perfect picture of it, but at least start looking at, you know, what's the cost, what are the things that I will probably need in order to attend this school, and look vaguely into your options so that way you are understanding a little bit more when it comes to like applying, and if you genuinely want to apply to that school and can't afford that school, but if the funding opportunities are available to you. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but my camera overheated in the middle of me recording. So yeah, we're just gonna have to keep going and get that figured out later. Hopefully it doesn't stop again. Let's cross our fingers. Okay, so my next thing that I realized other people were doing, and something that I learned later that I wish somebody told me, but I kind of just realized other people were doing, was don't apply to schools just for the sake of applying to schools. Make sure that you have a reason and why you're applying and why you want to go there. And this is why. Okay, so when you're putting in college applications and when you're filling things out, that takes time, that takes money, that takes other people's time, because you have to ask for letters of recommendation. And if you're applying to 20 schools, that's a lot. And it's one thing if you really don't know where you want to go, you're just like, I have the time, I just want to throw my application out there and figure out where I want to go later. That's one strategy, that's cool. But what I highly suggest is that you really figure out and take the time in knowing where you want to go and choosing those schools and narrowing down your list, because all those applications, that's money that you could be saving for when it's time to actually go to school. And that's other things that you can get. That's like a textbook, because not only do you have to send off your transcripts, you have to send off your tests, you have to ask other people for letters of recommendation when you could be taking that time to apply for more scholarships. It's just, I feel like, not the best approach to going about the college application process. Also, I feel like a lot of times people do it just for the sake of saying that they got into a certain school so they can, you know, fill out the application, send it out and be like, yeah, like I got in there. When really, no one really cares about that later down the line. I promise you, no one is looking back saying, oh wow, I know that one kid that got into that one school. I promise you, it's gonna be one thing that you say at the table for clout, and then no one is gonna care. And everyone's gonna go about their lives, especially if you don't end up going to that school, or especially if they don't offer funding packages, or I don't suggest applying to schools just for the sake of doing that. And then think about the people that have to like write your letters of recommendation, fill things out, your parents that have to put in the money or whatever. It's money that can be saved, it's time that can be saved if you just take the time to know why you're applying to a school and know which ones that you really want to go to. I promise it's gonna be hard to pick from that list. You don't want to necessarily have a list of 25 schools just for the sake of having a list of 25 schools. Okay, so my last and final thing that I wish I knew, or thing that I realized later down the line, is ask for help, but at the end of the day, make your own decisions. When I was applying, so many people gave me so many ideas. I really wanted to go to a school out of state, and somebody was like, no, like that's a lot of money, don't do that. And I was kind of hurt because I was like, I really want to go there and you're telling me no. And 9 times out of 10, people have your best interest. If you're asking them for help, I'm assuming that you're asking somebody that you genuinely trust their opinion. So 9 times out of 10, people are giving you advice from their own experiences. And so take that into account, but at the end of the day, it's your decision. You have your pros and cons, you have your priorities, and only you can decide at the end of the day. So definitely take in advice, talk to people, get that information, but make your own decisions. And with that being said, also don't forget to reach out to those people and thank them for helping you and thank them for talking to you, or at least do that by telling them what school you decided to go to. Tell them, follow up with them. If they write a letter of recommendation, follow up with them and be like, hey, that letter of recommendation that you wrote, I got into that school. Take the time to go back and think and keep updated the people that are investing in you and talking to you, because I've done that before and we really want to know. We really want to know, like, did that advice I gave you pan out or did it not work? Maybe I shouldn't give that advice again. Maybe it's different situations that I didn't take into account when giving that advice or when they were giving you that advice. So have a conversation with the people that are invested in you. It's definitely a back and forth thing. Don't just take in what they're saying, but also come back to them with information so that way, it's a conversation and it's a mentorship, not just, can you write my letter of recommendation and then you never see that person again, Alright, so that's all that I have for today. If you have any questions about the application process at all, make sure you leave them in the comment section below. I'll be doing a video at the end of the series in which I answer your questions. Either they'll be coming from the comment section, they might be coming from my Instagram account, wherever. I'm gonna make a video at the end of this answering questions that I may have missed that you have asked. So leave the question, and also make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, because there are more videos to come and you don't want to miss them at all. I promise you don't want to miss them, especially if this is something that you're doing soon. So thank you again for watching. Thank you again for coming here and indulging in what I have to say, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye.
Can we just talk?